We do have, however, Congressman Michael Waltz, former Green Beret, congressman and advisor to then Vice President Dick Cheney. Congressman, good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you, Leland.
Are we clear-eyed enough in who Vladimir Putin is and his intentions?
Well, you know, the real irony in what you just laid out there is actually Putin and his oligarchs, when they're justifying their aggressiveness, usually in their propaganda, uses the term fascism, Nazism to describe, in this case, Zelensky's government. And that it was, you know, the reimposition of Nazism and fascism that was abusing, and they even used the term genocide on ethnic Russians in Ukraine to justify it. You're going to see that justification over and over again. I fear after Ukraine, you're going to see it for the ethnic pockets that are in Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia.
So much of what's happening right now in Ukraine could, in the words, get out of control very quickly. It would happen, of course, if Vladimir Putin went into Latvia or Estonia or anywhere else that NATO has land. We're on with Article 5. What do you make? What do you make of how valiantly the Ukrainians are fighting and how much better, for lack of a better term, they are doing against the Russian army?
Yeah, I was just out there in Kyiv and visited the Ukrainian Special Operations Command and a number of the ministries. And I have to tell you, they were ready to fight. It was clear then that they were gearing up for what they knew would be literally the fight of their lives. I think that Putin has underestimated the level of nationalism that has crept into the Ukrainian society and their military since the invasion of Crimea and the Donbass in 2014. I think in many ways, Putin assumed this would be like Crimea, particularly in the eastern parts of Ukraine, where you have much more ethnic Russians. You have to understand, the farther west you go towards Poland, the more Ukrainian nationalism and ethnicity that you get. But the farther east towards Russia, I think he assumed east of the Dnieper River that runs through north to south through the center of the country, that it would fold pretty easily, and it's not.
Yeah, when I was in the eastern part of Ukraine for the 2014 invasion, the Ukrainian army was, I don't want to use a word for an army that is currently fighting so bravely, but it certainly wasn't the force that we see today.
Right.
Very good point. The western part of the Ukraine is where this insurgency is going to happen. You've got brave Ukrainians fighting. You've got them sending their women and children out of the country. That's the video we're watching right now. And as far as I understand, the U.S. is not flooding lethal aid and reinforcement and resupply into Ukraine. Do you think the president is selling the Ukrainians out because he just would have preferred Vladimir Putin to take over and be done with this?
Well, I don't know necessarily that it's that overt, but I think the president
is there another
is
explanation?
In a box, and Putin knows it, and it all has to do with energy. Putin knows that they're not going to. This is why you haven't seen Russia get kicked out of the SWIFT system, because if you do that, they can no longer transact through the banks their oil and gas, and therefore you're essentially cutting off Europe. It's the Europeans that are begging us not to kick Russia off the SWIFT system. And Putin also knows, because he knows our domestic politics, that Biden won't replace that oil and gas with ours, because he knows Biden is completely beholden to the progressives. The third point is we're importing 7% of our oil now from Russia, which has doubled over in the last year. As we've gone to war on our own energy supplies, we've actually created a dependency on Russia. And then the final point is he now has a backdoor with China. In the opening days of the Olympics, Putin and Xi signed a West Siberian pipeline deal that I believe they're going to get in very quickly. And once that's in, he can completely cut off European oil and gas if he chooses, because he'll have a market in China. So all of those things combined is why an economic and a sanctions first approach hasn't deterred. What will deter, and what would have deterred, is what you just said: flooding the zone with lethal arms, more sophisticated lethal arms, particularly Stingers. And it's been enormously frustrating on both sides of the aisle. We have been demanding that the administration do more and send more weaponry in to help the Ukrainians fight for themselves, and they're not doing it.
Yeah, it's incredible, really, and surprising to a lot of us who did the initial hours of the war and were saying this was going to be over pretty quick, and it's not. And it's inspiring to see the Ukrainians fight. You talked about the Stingers, and the Russians still don't have air superiority, although they, at least if you listen to the president of Ukraine, he's saying this could be over in the next couple of hours, overnight, if the Russians are able to push through. One thing that's happening, the Russians are taking a lot more casualties. We understand about 2,400. There's these protests against the war inside of Russia. Delta Airlines ending their relationship with Aeroflot. They're starting to become this social and economic non-governmental move against Vladimir Putin. Where is Apple and Amazon Web Services and Google to shut off Russia, not because the U.S. government tells them to, but because they believe that what Russia's doing is wrong?
Well, it'd be interesting if they moved down that road, and then how China would react, because that's what all of those tech companies and heck, most of corporate America is worried about in terms of their balance sheet is China, and whether behind the scenes China is holding that in check. But to your earlier point, Leland, on how this can spread, if we move lethal aid in and the administration does the right thing and helps the Ukrainians resist with IEDs, with sniper weapons, with secure comms, with Stingers, they're going to have to move them over land, either through Romania or through Poland. Putin is not going to take kindly to that. And essentially, there's three things you need for an insurgency: the will to fight, we're seeing that; the resources, they need those from the United States; and a sanctuary. And if Poland and Romania serve as a sanctuary for an ongoing resistance, that is another way that this could escalate into involving NATO and therefore the United States in a shooting match.
Yeah, and the 82nd Airborne, we know, is in Poland near the border, ready to assist with refugees. So they're part of that force. Hey, Congressman, it's good to see you. We appreciate it. Thank you. Have a good weekend. I know it's going to be some late nights talking to your friends in Ukraine.
All right. Thank you, Leland.
Thanks. Good to see you. Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.